Okay, a guten Tag, everybody. A guten Zimmer. As we welcome in Saba and wish him a refuah shalema and Michal, and we welcome in Mark Frankel and Cian Cohn, A.B., Spry, Nachman, Irving Fishbaum, Aaron Swade, Mel Zachter, Dr. Black, Shimon Deer, Moshe Lehman, and Baby, Yitzi Muller, Ilya Shutman, Abe Arbach, Chaim Braun, and David Helfgott on Kololoshin. And let's set up the Facebook. Okay, we got the Facebook going. And we have Berish Gesseman holding the fort here down in the shul. And it's interesting that after Yom Kippur, it says it's a minhag to, start your sukkah. And it says, Yelchu mechayil el chayil, going from strength to strength. I can certainly say that it's a wonderful minhag to learn right after the Yom Tov of Shavuos. It's certainly going from strength to strength, and it's actually putting your commitment into practice. The new Kabbalah Satira. So we are learning in Schus that all children should be gotten into yeshiva without heartache to the parents, and it should be a smooth, delightful experience. That it should be that way, Rabbi say. Now, we had said, when we ended off in the middle of a sugya last night, as we start the top line of Daf Yud Amud Aleph, we had said that the three things that we said, Gittin Noshim and Get Shikra, the writ of emancipation of an Eved, are the same, and we wanted to know why it doesn't say more things. So we said that it only talks about rabbinical items and not biblical items. So on that, the Gemara retorts, Voha Chazara, we said that both by Get Isha and the Get Shikra, if the husband or the master sends to the shliach and reneges on it before it gets to the woman or the slave, he could back out. That's the Raisa, Voha Chazara, the Raisa V'Ktani. So now the Gemara proposes a new difference. Elakikatani milsa deleise b'kedushin. It says only things that are by get nashim and get shikhr, but not by kedushin. Milsa the isa b'kedushin, but something that's by kedushin like katani. Says the Gemara. Well, wait a second. Says the Gemara, but V'chazara gufa, the din of retraction isa b'kedushin, is by kedushin, because if you send kedushin to a woman and you retract before it reaches her, you could retract, so it is by kedushin. So the Gemara says, yeah, but there's a very important difference between kedushin and get, and that is you could send a get with a shliach to a woman against her will, because you could divorce a woman against her will because you don't need the das of the woman when she's being divorced, but you cannot divorce or you cannot marry a woman against her will, and therefore there is a difference between the shlichus of kedushin and the shlichus of a get, as the Gemara explains. Bal karcha, it's taught b'shlichus bal karcha. It's talking about an agency against her will, the begerish in isa, that could be by divorce, because you could divorce a woman against her will, at least biblically, or by kedushin lasa, and you cannot do it by kedushin. By kedushin, it has to be with her consent. Now the Gemara is going to talk about we've mentioned it before. It's going to talk about the Mishnah is going to talk about a witness that's a kusi. Now, this is going according to the opinion that kusim geirei emesain, that when they converted after they were attacked by lions, their conversion was sincere. So therefore, at least at this point in the Mishnah, they had a din of Jews. The question is, do they have a din of trusted Jews? This is a big machloikis because some say they weren't careful with dikduke mitzvahs. So says the Mishnah, Kol get sheyesh alav eid kusi, any document, get is a document, any document that has a witness who was a kusi, puzzle, is disqualified. Chutz megitei nashim v'shichrurei avadim, except for the get to women and a writ of emancipation to slaves. If it has one witness of a kusi, it's accepted. Now the Gemara tells us even more. Ma'aseh she'aviu lifnei Rab Gamliel lekfar Usnai. There was an incident that they brought before Rab Gamliel to the village of Usnai. Get Isha, a divorce document. V'ya eidav eidei kisim, and both witnesses were kusim v'hichsher, and he accepted. We'll see that there's one opinion in the Gemara that we changed this. Instead of saying v'hayu eidav, it's eidai, and only one witness. And there's another opinion that even both witnesses are kusim, and Rabbi Gamliel approved the get. So now we're going to see, the Gemara is going to bring down a three-way machloikis about the status of a kusi. And remember, this is going completely according to the opinion that kusim geirei emes, that the kusim were considered sincere converts. Later on, all of this became a moot point, because later on they found the kusim worshipping a demus, Yonah, a likeness of a dove on Har Grizim, and then they were demoted to the status of Oivdei Kechavim. But at this point, at this stage of Mishnaic time, the kusim were viewed as Jews. The only question is, are they Jews that could be trusted? As we welcome in Yitzi Muller, we welcome in Eddie Holtzman, Stephen Holtzman joining us. And for those just joining us, we're on the Gemara, 9 lines from the top of Daf Yud Aleph. So the Gemara says, Mani Masnisin, who's the author of our Mishnah? It would seem to be Loi Tanakama, not the Tanakama, V'loi Reb Eliezer, V'loi Reb Shimon Gamliel. Now we're going to cite all three opinions. The Tanya, Matzah's Kusi, the matzah of a Kusi, Muteres, it's permitted. In other words, we can trust him that it didn't become chametz. And not only that, you could fulfill your requirement on the first night of Pesach for the matzah by the Seder, because we say that he did shmir it. It says ushmartem es matzahs, that it has to be watched specially for the mitzvah of matzah, and we could assume that we could trust him that he did that. Rebbe Elazar says you can't even eat his matzah. They don't know that after 18 minutes it becomes chametz. They're not careful with it, so you can't even eat it. Reb Shimon Gamliel says, well, the jury is out. In other words, the situation of mitzvahs with a kusi depends on which mitzvah it is. Reb Shimon Gamliel kol mitzvah she'achziku b'kusim, any mitzvah that the kusim took seriously, they're even more careful than a regular Jew, but not all mitzvahs. So the Gemara says, Mani, the authorship of our Mishnah that says that the kusi can't be trusted by other documents, but only by Gittin, get Isha, and writ of emancipation, who is it going like? Itanakama, who says that matzah is fine, and you could even eat it the night of the Seder, so they're like a regular Jew. Well, if that's the case, then other documents should be good too. Says the Gemara, Itanakama afilu sharish doris nami. And Ira Belazar that says that they're not careful, so it shouldn't be good even by Gittin Nashim. Afilu get isha nami loy. Reb Shimon Gamliel, and if it's going according to Reb Shimon Gamliel, well, it depends. Ida Arzuk, if they're careful, then even Shashtar should be good. I feel Shashtar is Nami. And Ida Loyachzuk, and if they're not careful, then I feel get Isha Nami like. So you'll say, oh, no problem. You'll say that Reb Shimon Gamliel says that they're careful with get Isha and get Shichra, and they're not careful with other shtaras. B'chitem Reb Shimon Gamliel, the authorship of our Mishnah is Reb Shimon Gamliel. Uda Arzik B'ha, they're careful with get Isha and get Shechra, but they're not careful with Shashtaris. But there's still a problem. Because if that's the case, then why is it only with one aid Kusi? If they're careful with get Isha, it should be good even if both aidim are Kusim. Why only with one aid? I feel a trainami. But Allah Muhammad Rabbi Lazar said, they only permitted it aid echad Kusi bilvad. Only one aid, not two aidim. But if they were careful with get Isha, it should be good even with two aidim. So here we're stuck. It's not the Tanakama, it's not Rabbi Lazar, and it's not Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, as we welcome in Aronson Kletzel and Nathan Langner, Yehuda from Har Nov. Says the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Yud Amud Aleph on a wonderful Matzah Yom Tov. And Mark Frankel said, could we learn 6 blot tonight? No, Mark, we can. Says the Gemara, 5. Okay, we'll think about it. Hashem should give us strength, but Rabbi said, by the end of the night, you'll thank me that I did the extra blot last week, that we didn't have to do 3 blot tonight. Remember we did that? We invested, and we welcome in David Helfgott joining us on Kol Lashon. Says the Gemara, L'olam Rebbe Lazar. Now remember, Rebbe Lazar is the one that said that they're not a baki, and that's why it's no good by other stars. However, you know what happened over here? What happened is A.B. Spry signed as the second witness. And therefore, if A.B. signed after this Kusi, he must have made sure that the Kusi was a Kusi Chaver, that he was a Kusi that knew Diktuke Mitzvahs, otherwise he wouldn't have signed with him. And that's why it's only 1. Because 2, then you would have nobody testifying. But if it's 1, so you have A.B. testifying about the reliability of the Kusi. Let's see it inside. As we welcome in Shelley Zeitlin, 2 lines from the bottom of Daf Yud Amud Aleph. L'olam Rebbe Lazar. It's going according to Rebbe Lazar. Ukegain dechasim Yisrael libesayf. It's talking about where A.B. signed as the second witness, as we turn to Daf Yud Amud Beis. Di'i lav the Kusi chaver hava. If not that the Kusi was reliable and he was a Talmud Chacham, loy machtem loy mikame. He wouldn't have signed it. So what's the obvious question? Then it should be good by a promissory note too. It should be good by a deed of sale too. It should be good by other shtaros also. Says the Gemara, why isn't it good by the other shtaros? It's because together with the Kusi there were other older Jews around, and A.B. thought that one of those older Jews would sign, so he signed second to leave room for somebody older than him. He left room for somebody older than him, and then he went away. He left room for somebody older than him. He went away. We don't know. He says the Gemara, he couldn't have gone away in the case of a get, because by a get, you have to see who's signing. By another shtar, you don't have to, the witnesses don't have to sign at the same time. So, A.B. could sign second and then go away. Thank you so much. A.B. could sign second and then go away. So his signature is no proof about the veracity of the Kusi. But in the case of a get, A.B. has to be there when the other witness signs. We'll see why in a second. And therefore, Abi will say, who's signing? And therefore, he knew that the Kusi was signing. Amar Papa says, the Gemara, this proves, they can't sign one without the other. Now, Taka, why is that? As we welcome in Mikhail, why is that? Why can't you sign one without the other? My timer. Because there's a din that a husband could say when writing the get that he's giving the get b'fnei kulchem, in front of all of you. And then it's only a good get if everybody signs it. And therefore, if AB signs, he's testifying it was a good get because everybody was signing. So therefore, you have to make sure that you see everybody sign. Amar Rav Ashi, but my time, Amar Rav Ashi, Gzeir Mishum Kulchem, because of a get of Kulchem. Normally, by regular get, that's only two witnesses. You don't have to be there without when the other witness signs. But since in the case of where it has to be all witnesses signed, so AB has to make sure that everybody signs, so he has to be there. So we say by all Gittin, all the witnesses have to be there. Gufa. Covered Malav Malka. Matzi Shabbos Malugma. Chamim b'Matzi Shabbos Malugma. Which means it's therapeutic. I told you that they say a famous remez. It says mechabesh la'atzvaisam, which means that it heals those that are depressed. So mechabesh is a acronym for Chaman b'Matzoi Shabbos. So says the Gemara, Gufa, Amar Rabbi Lazar says, they only allowed a get with one witness that's a kusi. Now, the Gemara says, what do I need Rabbi Lazar to tell me that? It says beferish in the Mishnah. It says, my Kamash Malan, what's in a beferish in Mishnah, Rabbi Lazar doesn't have to teach us. My Kamash Malan, Tanina, kol get shieshal of 8 kusi puzzle. Any get that has an 8 kusi is puzzle, except for Gittin Daf. So that implies that by a get nashim, it's only good if it's 1/8. Says no. Ima masnisin hamamina, that a get isha or get shikra might be good even with 2 edim of kusi. Afilu treinami v'haidik tani chad, and that which it says 1 in the Mishnah is to tell you that other gittin are no good even if they only have 1. Mishum de b'shtaris afilu chad nami loy kamash malan, that Rabbi Lazar tells us that even by get isha where it's good, it's only good with 1/8. Says the Gemara, wait a second, but that's not what it says about the Maisa with Rabbi Gamliel in the village of Isnai. Says the Gemara, betray lie. 2 witnesses of a kusi are no good by a get. They brought before Rabbi Gamliel to the village of Isnai get isha, a get of a woman, a dove, a de kusim, and its witnesses were a de kusim. So you see, even if it's 2, and you don't have Abi, the second star, testifying about the veracity of the kusi. Amar Abaye Toni Edai. Like I told you when we learned the Mishnah, Abaye says amend it and read it only 1 witness, Edai, not a dove. Rav Amar Rava says no, Lailam Trey, 2 witnesses. Rabbi Gamliel argues, and Rabbi Gamliel holds, like the opinion, the third opinion of Shimon Gamliel, that any mitzvah that they were hirzikuba, they're much more than everybody else. And he holds that they were hirziku in Gittin Nashim and Gittin Avodim, and therefore it's good even if both witnesses. And that's what the Gemara says. Rav al Malaylam Trey, Rav Gamliel Miflik Polik, and Rav Gamliel argues on the Tanakama. V'chisurei mechsra, the text is in full. V'achi ketani. Rav Gamliel machshir b'shnayim. Rav Gamliel approves it, even if there's two witnesses that are kusim. No ma'asanami, and there was such an incident. Sheivil ifnei Rav Gamliel l'kfar Usnai. They brought before Rav Gamliel to the village of Usnai get isha, a get of a woman, via aid of Eidei Kusim, and there were two Eidei Kusim, v'echsher, and he approved it. Now, Gedalia is joining us just in time for the new Mishnah on Daf Yudamid Beis. Gedalia was one of the heroes of our Shvuas here at the Aguda Beis Zev of Fairways, laning for us at the Vasikin Minyan and doing Akdamas and doing Rus today and doing Yitziv Piskam and doing Musaf. A real wonderful job. Honor to have you, Gedalia. Honor to have everybody. And Richard Rosenzweig has just joined us via Facebook, second best face. Oh, no, I see Bruce Eisenberg. Is that? No, not Bruce Eisenberg. It's Moshe Lehman. Now, it takes, everybody should get an extra Yasher Keichacha for joining us here tonight, because it's not easy after a very long Yom Tov to come and learn, and it's really a pleasure to have all of you. We're just having another arrival, but I don't see who that is yet. Now, new Mishnah. Now, don't get nervous about this. Who is that? Oh, that's Menachem Umansky. Good to vach Menachem. So we know that there's a yesod of Dina de Malchusa Dina, that the law of the land is law. And that's going to come into play in the next Mishnah. The Mishnah tells us, all documents that are processed in a Goyish court by Goyish witnesses, even though their signatures are Goyim, Ksherim, they're kosher, except for the get of women and a writ of emancipation, because the din is by Gittin, it says v'kosav v'nosan, you write it and you deliver it, and the only person that's allowed to write / sign is only someone that is able to give a get. And since Goyim are not in the din of Gittin and Kedushin, they are not allowed to sign shtar. Reb Shimon now is going to say, but wait a second. We hold like Rebbe Lazar that Eidei Mesira Karsei, that the witnesses of delivery are the ones that clinch the get. So as long as the witnesses of delivery are Jews, even if the signatures are Goyim, Rebbe Lazar Aimer Af Elu Kisherim, Loi Huzkaru, it's only mentioned that it's no good by a guy, Elubizman Shenasu Behedyet, when a business shtar is made in a private setting and not in court. We'll learn more about this last part of the Mishnah. There's a controversy what this last part of the Mishnah means. I gave you one interpretation as we welcome in Nachman Chapler joining us on this wonderful evening. It's good to see you, Nachman. We want to tell you that we missed you here in the Aguda Fairways. Now, here's an interesting thing. I gave you a scoop. I told you about Dina de Malchusa Dina. But without Dina de Malchusa Dina, there would be a svara to make a difference between a sale and a gift. See, if I sell Mark a property and he pays me for it, he acquires the property with the money. The deed is only a proof. So therefore we could say it's good even with Goyim because they're afraid to perjure themselves. But if in the event I give Mark a gift, then he acquires it with the vehicle of the shtar. How could that be good if it's Goyim? And that's what the Gemara first tries to figure out as we welcome in a man who needs no introduction, who changes the climate when he comes in. All of a sudden it's now stormy and turbulent outside, 64 degrees below zero, as we welcome in warmly Marshall Castle. Marshall, we are at the Gemara, just starting the Gemara, on Daf Hayomi Beis. Gemara, Daf Hayomi Beis. It is in Masechtas Gittin Bavli in the middle. Good, I'm glad you have the Gemara the right side up. Okay, now. Kapasik v'tani loishna mecher loishna matana. It doesn't make a difference whether I'm selling the property to Mark or I give it as a gift. So the Gemara says, why? Bishleima mecher, if I sell it to him, Mechiyov zuzik kamayu hu dekana. He buys it for me with the money. Ushtar raya balmo, and the shtar is a proof. So then goyim are good too. The ilo yov zuzik kamayu, because if they wouldn't see Mark give me the money, lo yavi mari nafshe, they wouldn't perjure themselves with custom leishtara. Elamatana, but in the event that I give the property to Mark as a gift, then his vehicle of acquisition is the shtar. Elamatana b'maikani, how does he acquire it? La b'aishtara. But how could that be a good shtar for Kinyan? V'aishtara chaspa b'almo. It's only a mere shard since it's signed by Goyim. Says the Gemara, it's not a shard because of Dina de Malchusa Dina. Mashmul Dina de Malchusa Dina. So Dina Malchusa Dina, since the law of the land is law, so therefore they say that a deed of sale that's signed by Luke and Lucas is good, so therefore it's good. The Iba Yisema, no, it's no good by a gift. Rather, Tani Chutz Mekigi Nashim. Anything that's like Gittin Daf. So a matana with a shtar is also a vehicle that causes it to happen, and not just a proof, would not be good, signed by Goyim. That's a second pshat. Reb Shimon Aimer Afei Lukasherin, for Gittin Nashim and get Shechrer, Luke and Lucas could also be kosher. Says the Gemara, how could that be? We said because of V'nasan that the ksiva, the signing, has to be by people that are able to give a get. The whole labnei krisis ninu. Luke and Lucas are not able to effect a krisis; they are able to give a get. Amar Rabbi Zeira Yared Reb Shimon l'shitasa shel Rabbi Lazar. He's going according to Rabbi Lazar, and it's talking about a get that had two valid witnesses, right? Dr. Guy and Irving witnessed it. Says Gemara, but wait a second. Rabbi Lazar, if you remember, we said that even though he holds Eidim Mesira Karsi, and a get doesn't have to have signatures, but if the get is signed by a Korav, it's puzzled, because even though it's good without any signatures, but if it has a flawed signature, that makes it worse. Less is more. If it's forged from within, if it has a flaw from within, it's possible. So even though it would be good with no signatures, but if it has disqualified signatures, it's no good. So over here, since it's signed by two goyim, Luke and Lucas, that are not b'nei krisis, that should make it worse. Says the Gemara, Hocha b'mayaskinon. Here, you know what we're talking about? Here we're talking about b'shemais muvhakin. It's talking about where they're clearly goyim. Because what's the reason why Rabbi Lazar holds that we don't allow to have a relative sign the get? Because we're afraid if we allow him to sign the get, we might allow him also to be the Eidei Mesira. But if the names are Goyish, clear Goyish names like Luke and Lucas, we're not afraid that we might come to use Luke and Lucas as Eidei Mesira. We'll know that they're Goyim. And the Gemara says, Heichi dami shema ismuvhakin. What are examples of clearly Goyish names? Even yesterday we said Ike. Ruvain Pollack says he knows an Ike, right? He knows a Jewish Ike. So what's an example of clearly Goyish names as we welcome in Eddie Chazan just in time for the second daf on Yud Aleph, Amar Aleph? Amar Apapa, Kegain Hermes, Va'avodina, Bar Shiftoi, or Bar Kidri, or Batei, says the Gemara, or Batei, Vinokim, and Una. None of these names are Mark's next door Jewish neighbors, right? So therefore, these names, since we're not worried that you might come to use them as the Eidei Mesira, according to Rabbi Lazar, as long as Irving and Dr. Guy witnessed the delivery of the get, so it's good even though the Eidim were Goyim. I'm just going to pause a moment to turn over here.